Hey guys, what's going on? Well, welcome back for chapter 6 of the book of Revelation. As always, I'm here with Bev, my wonderful mother-in-law, who's agreed to join us on this journey through the book of Revelation. Thank goodness, because it would be hard doing this alone. So chapter 6 is actually pretty exciting because we're picking up where we left off from chapter 5, which is Jesus is taking the scroll from God the Father himself right off the throne. I mean, really bold. If you missed yesterday, again, you don't want to miss a single chapter because it literally, each one kind of leads and ties into the next one. Yes. But chapter 6 is really, in a larger scope of things, it's in the kind of the middle of the second section of the book of Revelation itself. Again, with that literary structure being broken up into 7 sections. So we're really in section number 2. But today we're picking it up where we left off yesterday with Jesus taking the scroll and now opening it.
Absolutely. It's so exciting. You know, that scroll was the New Covenant, and we compared it to the 2 tablets in the Old Covenant.
Right, the Ten Commandments.
The 10 Commandments.
Right.
Between God and man. But this one is one scroll. And so God himself is going to provide the sacrifice. And Jesus, the Lamb of God, he opens it up.
Wow.
And today we're going to get to see him ripping off the 6 out of the 7 seals right in this passage.
Okay.
Before we get going into this, though, we're going to see 4 horses. The first 4 seals are going to be regarding 4 horses. And there's some Old Testament imagery in Zechariah about this.
Okay, Zechariah the prophet from the Old Testament, the book of Zechariah specifically.
And he was that one that was out in exile with the people of God.
Okay.
And so the first chapter of Zechariah, his very first vision had to do with a man seated on a red horse.
Okay.
And it's interesting that Adam is the same term, it means red. So Adam and red kind of go together.
Okay.
And so this man is seated on a red horse, and he's down in a ravine with myrtle trees all around him. And behind him is a red, a white, and a brown horse. This man riding on this red horse is commanded by the Lord to go out in the whole earth and take a peek at what's going on out there.
Okay.
And he comes riding back. They go riding out all over the world.
Now this is all in Zechariah's vision.
In Zechariah's vision.
Okay.
They're riding out through the whole earth, and they come back to the mighty angel of God, and they say, wow, you know what we found? The whole world is at rest and peace.
Okay.
And this is man's perspective.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And
I was going to say, that sounds unusual or wrong.
We got a good kingdom here. It's all good rest and peace.
I don't know where he went to, but...
Exactly. Okay. And God is very angry about this. And he says he's angry with the nations because they feel very secure.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay.
Now flip over past a few more visions and you get to Zechariah 6.
Okay.
And now we're going to see 4 other horses, but these are pulling chariots.
Okay. So we're still looking at some of these 4 horse examples in the Old Testament, but it's about to tie in what we're looking at in Revelation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there's a little background before we get in here.
Gotcha.
And these 4 horses actually represent something totally different.
Okay.
These 4 chariots are led by 4 different colors of horses.
Okay.
And they're coming between 2 mountains, which represent kingdoms.
Okay.
2 kingdoms.
Gotcha.
And basically, their colors are red, black, white, and dappled.
The colors of the horses.
The horses of these chariots.
Dappled meaning kind of like speckled, multicolored?
Speckled and spotted.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were powerful. It tells us about these chariots and these horses.
Okay.
They're powerful. They're the 4 spirits of heaven coming from the very presence of God.
Okay.
So these are God's perspective and what God does in relationship to the earthly perspective we just talked about.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Now,
so one is man's view, and this is kind of more God's view.
God's doing here.
Okay, gotcha.
The action of God. And Zechariah gives us another clue. He tells the direction these horses are going.
Okay.
But we'll get into that later when we get into Revelation.
Okay, all right.
So let's just dive into Revelation now, Revelation 6. And the first 4 seals are those 4 horses, and it tells different aspects of Jesus' redemptive work.
Okay.
And it ties it really together and correlates it with the 4 living creatures that we talked about previously.
Okay.
Which are the attributes of Jesus and what he does in relationship to redemption.
Now, I can't help but notice number 4 over and over again. 4 horses, the 4 creatures, but again, all kind of tying together with the numbers that we mentioned in the overview.
And what does 4 represent? Do you remember it?
It's the earth, right?
The earth, the numbers of the earth. You got it. Yay. Got it. So this has to do with an earthly thing.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to look at Jesus, the Lamb, ripping off the first seal. It's in verses 1 and 2.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and read that. Again, if you have your Bibles, Revelation 6 and verses 1 through 2. Now, again, this is still John the author speaking, or
Yes.
writing, I guess I should say. Okay. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer.
So here we see Jesus, the Lamb, ripping off that first seal, and the first living creature, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And he speaks with a voice like thunder, and he says, "Come." And we see this white horse coming.
Wow, interesting.
This white, brilliant horse.
So the living creature is the one calling this forth after Jesus breaks off the seal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the horse comes. Okay.
And that is the Lion of the tribe of Judah calling it forth.
Wow. Okay.
And here we see a rider, Jesus Christ himself, riding this white horse as the king.
Yeah, certainly seems to describe Jesus.
Yes, it
Okay.
does describe Jesus. And what we see here, we know from the Zechariah 6 that this white horse comes from the east. Just like God always rises from the east. The sun piercing
Okay.
the darkness.
Okay. And
the sanctuary.
Now, and as we looked at before, in the east was the lion, the symbol of the lion,
Exactly.
representing the tribe of Judah. Wow.
And
okay.
this horse is told in Zechariah that he comes from the east and heads to the west.
Wow. Okay.
They tie together. It's just incredible,
Good
isn't
grief.
it?
Yeah, it really
God's
is.
word is so awesome. And so it is God himself. God comes from the east. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he's carrying a bow. That means there's a battle going on.
Yeah. Okay.
And he rides as a conqueror, set to conquer the whole earth. And we already know the outcome because he's wearing a crown of victory. Remember,
Wow.
there's so we know he has a
Yeah.
victory.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward to the cross.
Okay. So going from the Old Testament, coming up to the cross where Jesus was crucified.
We're going to see something here that's very interesting. The Jews had to take Jesus for trial to a Roman tribune,
Right.
and it was Pilate.
Right. They were under Roman occupation. They couldn't just kill somebody without
Right.
approval.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
okay.
this was Pilate who was the governor over this Judea.
Right.
Now, the short term for Judah is Jew. That is, you might say, their nickname.
Okay. Okay.
Jew means Judah.
Okay.
And so during the trial, Pilate is having dialogue with Jesus. Jesus isn't answering very many questions.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
But there was one question that Pilate asked Jesus. He says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said,
It's as you say.
"Exactly as you
Yeah.
say, yes, I am."
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one question he did answer. Because
Okay.
Pilate was asking
Right.
that question.
Right.
And so, interestingly enough, the trial is just about done. And he's wanting to release Jesus.
Yeah.
And so he talks to the Jews and he says, "Here is your king." And they say, "Crucify him, crucify him." And he says, "Am I supposed to crucify your king?" And they said, "We have no king but Caesar.
Yeah. I remember that.
Caesar ruled the whole world. That's who they chose as their king, the king of the world at that time. It's interesting that God gives natural indications and proofs so there can be no doubt that even the people that want to doubt have even some natural evidences. We're going to look at a natural evidence that Jesus was the king of the Jews.
Okay.
Because Pilate, when Jesus was crucified, put a sign on Jesus' cross.
Right. Yeah.
And it said, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews."
Yeah.
And he wrote it in 3 languages.
I remember that. Yes.
It was Hebrew, which was the language of the Jews. It was in Greek, which is the common language
of the day, so
of
to
the day
speak.
there. And it was in Latin, which is the language of the whole Roman Empire. He didn't want anyone to miss the point that Jesus is the King of the Jews. So when Jesus was on the cross, it was proof. There was empirical evidence right there that he was
Wow.
Jesus.
Wow.
The King
For
of the Jews.
everybody to see,
For
where you
everybody.
couldn't miss it.
You couldn't miss it.
Okay. Wow.
And sure enough, Jesus is the Lion,
Yeah.
the King of the tribe of Judah.
Wow. Okay.
So, we're ready for the second seal.
Okay.
The Lamb's going
Sorry,
to
it's like I got to pause for a minute and wow. Okay. All right. Revelation 6. Now this one is 3 and
Verses 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come." Then in verse 4, another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword.
Wow, this is incredible, isn't it?
Sounds spooky?
So, here you have the second horse, and you have the second creature.
Yes, it did say the second
living creature
Okay.
announcing this horse and saying, "Come."
Okay.
And that second living creature was the ox.
The ox, right.
That sacrificial animal.
Right.
The burden bearer.
Yes, the other one was in the east. I remember we go this way, and it's that ox in the west. Okay.
Most likely in the west. And
Okay.
it doesn't say that.
Okay.
In,
All right.
in That's the one that...
Gotta not assume then.
No,
Okay.
that was one that doesn't say which direction the red one goes. I think it
Oh, I
means
see.
it's kind of all over the world.
Okay,
actually.
okay.
This is everywhere in the world, north, south, east, and west. Because in Zechariah 6, it doesn't. This is the one horse it doesn't tell us.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Ben. That's interesting. This horse is a fiery red horse, and the rider of this horse has power to take peace off the earth. It has this big sword, huge,
Okay.
mighty sword, to take peace off the earth. When you think about this, that red horse that went out in the first chapter of Zechariah,
Okay. Yeah.
they went to all the nations, and they felt that they were at peace and at rest, and they
Everything's
felt
good.
secure.
Yeah.
Well, this rider is going to stir them up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That idea of being peaceful and restful, gone.
Wow.
Jesus said, "I came not to bring peace, but
a
the
sword."
sword."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always kind of wondered about that.
Right.
You know, it seems
Odd
kind of
thing to
strange.
say,
The
yes.
Prince of Peace.
Right.
Coming to bring not peace, but the sword. Well, the sword actually is a dividing thing.
Okay.
And it's the sword divides, that double-edged sword, the sword out of his mouth,
Right.
divides people. You have to make a decision.
Yes.
Are you going to go on this side or that side? It was interesting. Even on the cross, there were two thieves with Jesus. One on the right and one on the left.
Oh, wow. Now I know where I'm assuming I know where this guy. I never want to assume too much with Bev, but one chose Christ and one didn't.
Exactly. They
Wow.
were both started out hurling insults at Jesus.
Yes.
Both of them started that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suddenly, one of them stops and he starts reprimanding the other and says, "Don't you fear God?
Right. Right.
We deserve to die, but this is an innocent man.
Right.
He has done nothing to deserve death."
Wow. How fascinating too that Jesus is in the middle.
And one's
of
on the right, one's on the
Wow.
left. The dividing sword.
Wow.
The cross is the dividing point.
Goodness.
And so Jesus, he says to Jesus, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." And you know what Jesus' answer was?
Yeah.
"I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise."
Wow.
One was saved, the other lost. So God gives absolute empirical evidence that Jesus is the Lamb.
Okay.
He, the Passover Lamb, dies on Passover.
Jesus
Jesus,
died on Passover. That was
As-
when he was crucified.
absolutely on
Wow.
Passover.
Wow.
The day of Passover.
No, see that it's stuff like that. I mean, what are the odds? You know, like how coincidental?
'Cause
You
that
know,
could
give
be-
me a break. It's incredible when it's like everything lines up.
To the T.
Yeah.
So the Lamb on the cross, Jesus Christ, is the dividing line that there's only two sides. And it divides.
Wow.
Okay, ready for number 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
That's in verses 5 and
Man,
6.
okay, yeah, moving on.
The third horse, the
Okay.
third seal.
All right, verses 5 and 6, the third seal. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine."
Here we see.
I have no idea what's happening, but go ahead.
Good, Ben.
I mean, I have a guess on the scales, but
Who is that
verse 6, I have no idea.
that third
Okay.
living creature?
Okay, the third living one is,
It's
that
the
one is down
man.
here. It's the man, yes.
It's the Son of Man.
course it's the man.
Jesus, the Son of Man.
Yes.
Absolutely. And yes, you got it. And he calls, that third living creature calls and says, "Come," and we see this black horse.
Right,
The
okay.
rider holding the scales, which
Scales
is
of judgment. Kind of
of
like what you
judgment.
would see at a courthouse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those scales. And basically, it reminds me of an Old Testament story.
Okay.
And it's the story of Babylon. The Jews, the people in Judea, were taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, because they had turned their hearts away from God. And God said, "Okay, if you want to know what Babylon's like, I'll let you go down there and
Right.
experience it."
Okay.
So King Nebuchadnezzar was the king, and he had died now. And King Belshazzar, his son, was now ruling in Babylon.
Okay.
And one night he decides to have a great big banquet and feast. He invites 1,000 nobles, leaders in his kingdom,
Okay.
and his wives and his concubines, and he says, "Come to this great big feast we're going to have. Go get those silver and gold goblets that my father Nebuchadnezzar took from the God's temple in Jerusalem. Bring them out. We're going to fill them full of wine."
Okay. Almost kind of in a little bit of a mocking sense of what's happening here. Okay.
And what happened is they all started praising the gods of gold and silver and bronze and iron and wood and stone. And suddenly there was a finger of a man writing something on the palace wall near the lampstand.
I remember that. Physically, you could see it was like,
It was a
I mean, it was God's hand, obviously, but yeah, it was
was
literally right. I mean, where you could see it, there was no denying what was
exactly.
happening.
It was a finger of a human hand. I believe it was the Son of God.
Yeah.
Writing right on the wall.
Yeah.
of
I
the
remember
palace.
reading about this. Yes.
And right near the candlestick. And it said, "Mene, mene, tekel, parson."
Mene, tekel, parson. Okay, here, we're going to put that up on the screen so you guys can actually see what was written. I mean, it's in the Bible. This is actually what was written. Now, nobody knew what it meant.
But somehow they knew this was something bad.
Right. Okay.
And the reaction to it was the King Belteshazzar just gets all upset. And he turns pale and he's shaking and trembling in absolute fear.
Okay.
And he calls in the magicians and all the spiritual people in his kingdom, and none of them could figure out what that meant.
Okay.
And then the queen remembered, there's somebody who has the Spirit of God in him. His
Okay.
name's Daniel. Just bring him in.
Okay. So now we're back. Daniel, same guy is our boy, Daniel in the lion's den. Okay. All right. So
And he
Daniel
gave
gets
him-
called up.
And he gives the interpretation. And he says, "God has numbered the days of your reign
Wow.
and brought it to an end."
Ooh. It's not what you want to read on the wall. Okay.
Second thing, he says, "You're weighed on the scales and found wanting."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Third thing, your kingdom's divided. It's given to the Medes and Persians. That night, the kingdom of Babylon came crashing down.
That night.
That night.
Wow.
And it's interesting that right before the cross, coming back to the cross now,
Okay.
he said, "Now is the time for the judgment of this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out," referring to Satan.
Okay.
Now in the Old Testament, the black horse heads north.
Okay.
This judgment horse heads north. And God says, when it gets up there, that horse is given my spirit rest in the land of the north. Once that kingdom of darkness is judged at the cross, there is rest in the land. And if you look at some of the meanings in this little passage here,
Yeah.
the wheat and barley were an exorbitant price. There was a famine in the land because of them.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
but
So it's
they-
almost like price gouging is happening here.
Yes.
Everything is so expensive.
Yes.
Okay.
But they couldn't touch the oil of the Spirit of God,
Oh, interesting.
nor the wine that represents Jesus, the
I
vine
see.
and the new wine.
I see. Okay.
So now let's look at the empirical evidence
Okay.
that Jesus
That coming back to the evidence again that
That
nobody can deny. Okay.
of Jesus, the Son of Man.
Okay.
We know that when Jesus went to the cross, he who knew no sin became sin on
Right.
the cross. He was the only man ever born called that Holy One. But when he went to the cross, he became Adam the sinner, you might say.
Right. Right.
And the
took
whole
all
human race.
Right. Took everything on
As a
his,
sinner on
Okay.
the cross. When he was at the cross, God was going to pour out his wrath, his anger against sin, sorrow, suffering, and death. That's what the wrath of God is. See, a loving God is going to deal with things that hurt his kids.
Yes.
And in a
Yes.
simple sentence, I like to describe the wrath of God as God's anger against everything that hurts his kids.
Wow.
Sickness, sorrow, suffering, hate,
Yeah.
envy, everything that's evil, God hates it. And that's called in 3 letters sin or evil. And God's anger poured out, the whole bowl of his wrath was poured out. That was the cup that he was in the garden saying, if possible, let this cup pass from me in Gethsemane.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But he will drink that cup
Wow.
of God's wrath at the cross.
Boy, oh boy.
So Jesus was the light of the world. He was that Holy One. But when that light went out for 3 hours, the sun stopped shining. And darkness descended
Darkness
over
covered the
land.
whole land. Wow.
And then at the end, when Jesus was all done, bearing the wrath of God on the cross. So Jesus, who knew no sin, became that sin on the cross and bore that wrath of God. And when he died, he said, "It is finished." At that very instant,
Yeah.
there was a huge earthquake,
I remember that. Yes. Yes.
and then the darkness lifted.
Wow.
It's just interesting to me that any time there's judgment, there's an earthquake.
Huh.
Always.
Wow.
We
That
see it
is
in
interesting.
Scripture again and again. When
Yeah.
judgment falls, there's
Right.
earthquakes.
Right. Yeah. No. I think even not only when Jesus was crucified on the cross, when he died and gave up his spirit, but I think about even like Noah when they were boarding on that boat, and it says, that the earth started splitting open and all that. Wow.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's
Fountains
interesting to
broke up.
see that theme
All
tied
the way
throughout all
through
of
Scripture.
Scripture. Wow.
In Jesus, God judged the whole world as guilty. And
Wow.
poured on him,
Wow.
the Son of Man. Well, you ready for the fourth and last horse?
I think so. Yeah. Are you?
Verses 7 and 8.
Okay, verses 7 and 8. When he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Sounds horrible.
Okay, that is horrible. So who is that fourth? Do you remember the fourth living creature?
It's an eagle, right?
The flying eagle.
Okay.
He's not even on the earth.
All right.
And he's there calling forth death. This is his last enemy.
Wow. Now, and of course, he's not saying it to welcome it. He's really calling it out to destroy it.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
And I tell you what, it's interesting. In the Old Testament, in Zechariah 6,
Yeah.
that horse was a dappled, that fourth horse was a dappled
That
horse.
kind of spotted, if you will.
Spotted.
Okay.
And if you go back, the meaning of that Hebrew word is very interesting. It's like as if it's hit by hail. In other words, it's been damaged.
Okay.
And so it has these spots all over it.
Huh.
Because it's been damaged.
Okay.
It's sickly. It's about to die.
Okay.
And now it's pale. It's died.
Wow.
And so it's interesting that the rider is death, and that means both physical and spiritual death.
Okay.
And right behind it's Hades, which is the grave, like we commonly think.
Okay.
It's interesting. Now the last enemy of God is destroyed, and that's death.
Yeah. Well, and the Bible talks about it. It says the last enemy to be destroyed would be death.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's interesting that we know which way that horse is going. It's starting from the north. It's been
Okay.
judged, and it heads south.
Oh, wow.
In other words, it falls off the earth.
Huh.
It's done.
Okay. Wow.
It's gone. That's
wow.
the bottom of the earth, and it just falls off.
Wow.
So back to the cross. When the Jewish leaders brought Jesus to Pilate to be on trial, they said, the reason why he should die is he claims to be the Son of God.
Right. Blasphemy, so to speak.
So it was
Yeah.
blasphemy, they thought. And it's interesting, even on the cross, they said, if you're really the Son of God, just prove it. Just come down off that cross.
Right. Right.
And instead, Jesus stayed on the cross, died that eternal death of the wicked that no one's ever going to come out of. So the empirical proof that Jesus is the Son of God is this. On the third day, which was the first day of the week, the sun pierced the darkness and Jesus rose out of the dead,
yeah.
triumphant over death.
Wow.
And he's called the firstborn from among the dead.
Right. Right.
And that was the proof that he is the Son of God.
Wow.
And because of that, anyone who believes in Jesus can become sons and daughters of God.
Wow. Just incredible.
So the four horses, in summary, basically tell the story of Jesus saving man.
Wow. Right.
Now-
Now we still have 2 more seals to wrap up here,
The
right?
fifth
So
and
the fifth
sixth.
one, okay.
Okay, the fifth seal that the Lamb rips off the scroll is these souls under the altar of sacrifice.
Okay, so coming back to God's throne room here.
Yes.
Okay.
Back to God's throne room. He's ripped it off, and what we see here are souls under the altar of sacrifice. Now, the altar of sacrifice is where they always did the sacrificial animals in the Old Testament.
Okay.
So those souls under the altar had made a decision. They're going to get under that altar of sacrifice.
Right.
And be protected from the wrath of God. But they're still in the middle of this clash between the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's casualties down here. People suffering, they're dying, they're getting killed sometimes even for believing what they believe, but they can die of sickness and all kinds of things from this kingdom of darkness reigning down here. So they're crying out to God a question: how long? Sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking how long until the final judgment, and this is over.
Wow.
They're given a white robe. They're seen as holy and righteous right now down here. God's sons and daughters right now. And so he tells them to go ahead and be patient because there's still some more coming in.
Yeah.
You got to get the full number into the kingdom.
See, I think that's so interesting is it kind of shows God's perspective and man's perspective. I mean, in the sense of like, we all want to be with God. We want that intimacy, that face-to-face with our Creator. Yet at the same time, God is like, be a little bit more patient because I want more and more people to be able to have the same privilege that you're going to have.
Make
I
a
want
decision.
more and more people to be here. Wow.
Absolutely. That shows the Father's heart, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Wow.
Sixth seal is the last one in this chapter.
Okay.
And basically, it is a description of that coming of the Lord. And the judgment being poured out at the coming of the Lord.
Okay.
And we see a great earthquake. Great
Very
big one.
okay. So very similar to what happened when Jesus died on the cross. Going back to the flood, anytime that
Yes.
there's judgment happening, you kind of see that earthquake.
That earthquake.
Wow.
The sun and moon made on the fourth day to light the earth have gone out. The sky, which was that expanse separating heaven and earth, is being rolled up like a scroll and disappearing.
Wow.
We see that every mountain and island disappear. There's nothing left.
Wow.
It's the end of the
world. Wow.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Goodness.
And God's wrath is poured out at that point against everyone who haven't accepted Jesus the Lamb.
Wow.
So this chapter closes with a description of how the wicked experience that coming of the Lord in verses 15 through 17.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and read that. Verses 15 through 17. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Very sobering picture.
Very sobering picture, yes.
Wow.
Well, tomorrow we're going to get the answer. Who can actually stand?
Not today. It's the
Tomorrow.
seventh seal. Yeah, because there's seven seals.
not the
We
seventh
still have not
seal.
gotten to the final one.
Actually, this is actually an interlude before we get to the seventh seal.
Okay.
We're going to see a picture of who the redeemed are in chapter 7.
Okay. Wow.
Before we hit that final seventh seal.
Interesting.
It's an
Okay.
interlude.
Wow. All right.
Tomorrow.
Well, it's coming up, guys. So, man, thank you so much for being here with us today. Again, Bev, thank you to you as well for joining us and leading us really through this. I mean, you can see we're doing an overview, really. I mean, this is really scratching the surface of what's here. There's so much more I know that you know, and I mean, beyond what any of us know. That's why, I've said before, you can read the Bible and read it and keep learning something new every
Absolutely.
single time. Even you've shared with me while you've been preparing these studies, you're seeing things that you haven't seen before.
I'm getting blessed.
Yeah, and I think, but that is the
Loving Jesus
amazing
more.
thing. That's the amazing thing. It's not just words. It's powerful. It's alive. It's God's word, and that's what we love about it. So, anyways, guys, hey, we don't want to take up any more of your time, but come back tomorrow for chapter 7. Do not miss it as we get into more of the book of Revelation. Know that God loved Jesus enough to send him to die for you, and not only to die for you, but to rise again so that you can have that relationship with him. If you haven't made that decision, just like we're talking about today, make that decision to follow Christ. Best decision, bar none, you will ever make in your life. Give your life to Jesus. All right, guys, we love you. See you tomorrow.